I would like to ask Natalia Słaboń to take the stand. I would like to introduce her briefly. She works at the Museological Center of the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, where she is responsible for public outreach programs as well as research and academic cooperation. She's a PhD candidate at the doctoral school in the humanities of the University of Łódź, where she's preparing a thesis devoted to Ryszard Stanisławski, the longtime director of the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. So please.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I want to thank the organizer for such an inspiring conference. I'm so glad to be part of. It's a great honor and a pure bliss. So the title is Between Program Policy and the Cultural Diplomacy, the Activity of Muzeum Sztuki in the 1970s, which is a pretty wide topic, but I will try to illustrate this with some case study. The issue of Muzeum Sztuki's international relation during Polish People's Republic was signaled by, among others, Andrzej Szczerski, who indicated that the program policy pursued by Ryszard Stanisławski as the director of Łódź institution made it quickly become an ambassador of Polish culture in the world. However, this activity was not so much a redefinition of international canon, but rather its original update. The figure of Stanisławski with his international network is a partial answer to the question of why a museum located in the very center of a working-class city became a place where, and I quote, "the history of Polish art for export was created," end of quote. Willing to gradually strive to capture Stanisławski's activity in all its complexity, as a part of my speech I will focus on a touring and monographic exhibition by Tadeusz Kulsiewicz, a Polish and extremely recognized graphic artist and painter which visited Czechoslovakia, Finland, Romania, and Soviet Union, in turn with a short break in 1973 for an exhibition within the walls of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. The context of the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, and more specifically of Ryszard Stanisławski, is a trend in Central and Eastern Europe, seemed to be a particularly neglected sphere of research on institutional history. This could be for at least several reasons. Firstly, it was not cooperation with the countries of Eastern Bloc during Cold War was the tongue of attention. It was cooperation with representatives of the Western world, with Centre Pompidou during the exhibition Présent Polonais in 1983, or with MoMA with the exhibition Polish Constructivism from 1976. As a consequence, cooperation with Central and Eastern Europe region may seem like a necessity and not an opportunity to expand the network of contacts and strengthen institutional cooperation. Of course, the political aspect of this type of cooperation and the inclusion of regional dialogue in the broader program of cultural exchange with the countries of the Eastern Bloc cannot be overestimated. In the case of Muzeum Sztuki, however, it was quite different. Stanisławski tried to see it as an opportunity and occasion to win something for his institution and to enrich it artistically. This is evidenced by the fact that he was entrusted with the organization of Tadeusz Kulsiewicz exhibition, the strategic importance of which will be discussed later in this speech. The program policy implemented during Stanisławski's term of office has never more holistic study. It is difficult to give one bonding clamp because it seems like it was the result of many factors, both institutional and external. To briefly highlight few of them, one should mention the changing moods among censors and the involvement of political forces in interfering with the activities of institutions, changing accents in the national cultural policy, the general social-political situation, for example, Gierek's decade and some neoliberal cracks, worker strikes or martial law, as well as the expanding network of contacts and growing recognition of Stanisławski and the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. The problem with grasping the nature of the program policy is reflected, for example, in the exhibition schedule in 1970. This year began with the monographic exhibition of Jasper John's lithographs, followed immediately by the exhibition The Figure of Lenin in the Polish poster, the 100th anniversary of Lenin's birth, to then present the works of Aiko Miyawaki, the sculptures by Ksawery Dunikowski, contemporary graphics of the Estonian Socialist Soviet Republic, and ending with a cross-sectional show that gathered acquisition of the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź in the years 68-70. The eclecticism, thematic and geographical range visible in the program may constitute a rather pictorial miniature of how many interest and sphere of influence Stanisławski had to reconcile with each other within the program of one institution. Adding to this the personal curatorial choices of the director of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, and as well as the specificity of the working class city and economic condition, one can risk a statement that the institution led by Stanisławski for 25 years became kind of phenomena in Poland, but also in the region. The role of liaison between East and West, but it's all, worth remembering also with the Global South, was paid for by several acts of political sacrifice, which, however, in the long run, allowed Stanisławski to keep his original curatorial style in the program of Muzeum Sztuki. The first edition, as it later turned out, of Tadeusz Kulisiewicz traveling exhibition took place in two cities, Czechoslovakia, Prague and Bratislava, from November 72 to end of January 73. It showed works that were mainly the property of Tadeusz Kulisiewicz, since the Muzeum Sztuki was in the possession of only pre-war works, and the artist himself was extremely prolific, creating drawings and graphics in numerous cycles, practically from each of his numerous journeys. The Czechoslovak exhibition and the later ones was accompanied by a catalog containing a critical introduction by Ryszard Stanisławski and a slightly more in-depth text by Mieczysław Poremski, a critic and a theorist who dealt with Kulisiewicz art practically from the very beginning of artist's career. Poremski text chronologically and problematically analyzed the successive stages in the Kulisiewicz works, postulating that he should be included in the, and I quote, generation of restores of life-giving movement that determines the fate of 20th century fine arts, end of quote. And he continues characterizing the specific of his work related to, and I quote, objective richness of surrounding words, but by no means illustrative literalness, ambiguous without confusing, aware of everything that moves contemporary artistic imagination, without belonging declared by superficial gestures, end of quote. It seems like it was precisely this striking versatility and the visual accessibility of Kulisiewicz art that could have a determinant of artists' strong promotion at home or strong and abroad. It is difficult to indicate that this is the decisive factor in this matter, artistic values or strong cooperation between two institutions. But during the exhibition, the National Gallery in Prague decided to purchase 7 works for its collection. However, exhibition in Czechoslovakia had an additional context that exhibition in Finland, Romania, and Soviet Union did not have. Kulisiewicz exhibition was conceived as of the element of long-term, in-depth cooperation with the National Gallery in Prague. On the one hand, it is in line with tendency proclaimed by the communist authorities in this part of Europe to tighten cooperation within the region, and on the other hand, it is quite particular because it only covers a specific institutions. Establishing an institutional dialogue between the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź and National Gallery in Prague, it's not a coincidence, but the result of a close professional and also semi-private relationship between both directors, Ryszard Stanisławski and Jiří Kotelik. In their correspondence of this exhibition, they refer to each other as dear friends, and some of them is in French, which make it possible to assume that they met during Stanisławski's stay in Paris long before he became a director of Muzeum Sztuki. In the letter sent to Jiří Kotelik, Stanisławski, thanking him for the excellent organization of exhibition, writes, and I quote, "The exhibition is a one more example of mutual cooperation between our museums in the field of presenting the most important achievements of contemporary art in 2 countries. We would like to continue this useful action as much as possible, and we truly welcome your proposal to organize an individual exhibition of Professor Jan Rzawy. We would take over the exhibition based on the existing rules of our mutual cooperation, which I will not repeat now," end of quote. Although this particular exhibition did not take place in the end, but the institutionalized cooperation lasted until the end of Stanisławski's term of office, which is 1991. It consisted of exhibition and publishing exchanges, but above all, periodic personal exchanges. This resulted in both the intensification of exhibitions by Czechoslovak artists. Exhibition by Milan Grigar and Stanislav Kolibal were held in 1974, and growing representation of artists in the collection of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, an example of which was, among others, the exhibition in 1975, Czech art from the collection of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź with work of 12 artists. Just before the presentation of Kulišević works in Finland and Romania, Stanisławski managed to organize a small and quite short show of Kulišević's latest drawings at the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. The exhibition, originally planned for 1970, was to be moved due to organization of ICOM Congress by Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź and an anniversary exhibition devoted to AR Group. The ministry rejected Stanisławski's earlier request to postpone Kulišević's exhibition at the turn of 70 and 71 due to large retrospective exhibition Kulišević planned for summer 71 at the National Museum in Warsaw. Thus, the exhibition was completely withdrawn from the plan of the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, but on the occasion of Kulišević's exhibition tour of Central and Eastern Europe, Stanisławski made another attempt to restore its exhibition plans. In arguing for the need, though, to present Kulišević works, Stanisławski, with a great skill and diplomatic spirit, turned the international tour of Kulišević works to his advantage. And I quote, that in this great working-class city, which in the interwar period was able to award Tadeusz Kulišević with the Polish National Award for his masking cycle Schlemberg at the time, not a single exhibition by this artist took place, end of quote. Thus, Stanisławski obtained additional funds and unplanned in an annual budget for the organization of the exhibition presenting of winner the award of the city of Łódź, Tadeusz Kulišević. The Ministry of Culture and Arts sent a letter to Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź requesting that the exhibition presented in Czechoslovakia be moved to Finland. The deadline, however, turned out to be late, and the works had been already returned to the institution and the artist himself. Therefore, it was not possible to move in the same shape so that it could be presented further. However, Stanisławski emphasized that this not that mean that it was impossible to create a completely new exhibition by Kulišević. Kulišević, during his stay in Finland, received offer from the embassy of the Polish People's Republic in Helsinki, so the creation of the exhibition seemed to be only a matter of time. Stanisławski, in response to a letter from ministry, suggested that a new institution should be appointed to handle Kulišević's next foreign exhibition. The National Museum in Warsaw, or the Central Bureau for Art Exhibition in Warsaw. This did not happen. However, in August, the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź received a request to take care of all organizational matters in connection with Kulišević exhibition in Finland. The embassy of the Polish People's Republic in Finland initiated contact with art institution Horkheimer Gallery and Santa Crosta Museum, where exhibitions were to be held. It is worth emphasizing that it was the government whose favorite Kulišević was, that the impulse to organize the show came out from. The exhibition in Helsinki and Pori was commissioned by the Department of Fine Arts in the Ministry of Culture and Arts. Therefore, the focus in this case is shifting from the institutional cooperation directly to the artist. However, as in this case of exhibition in Czechoslovakia, the works was comprised, it came from the collection of the author and Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. In the correspondence regarding the exhibition in Finland, while it was still running, a letter appeared informing that the Ministry of Culture, and more precisely in the Department of Fine Arts, decided that the exhibition will be moved to Romania. And the museum was to handle the exhibition once again in terms of organization and logistics. It can be assumed that the artist himself also likes such an arrangement, making the works of one institution available, including conservation care and exhibition catalogue. What is striking in the correspondence between Stanisławski and the Ministry of Culture is a clear and quite blunt tone in announcing the planned activities. The statement that the exhibition in Romania, as well as Finland, is created, and I quote, on our behalf by your museum, end of quote, indicates rather technical workmanship and mediation in the organization of the Kuliszewicz exhibition. The Kuliszewicz exhibition then decorated presentation of the government favorites and probably Stanisławski himself. The observation is also confirmed by the exhibition cost estimate, where was no longer the planned remuneration for the exhibition curator and the author of the text for the catalogue, as materials from the Finnish exhibition catalogue had been reprinted. The exhibition in Romania covered 3 cities, Bucharest, Cluj, and Jassy. In a letter addressed to Ministry, Stanisławski writes, as requested by the Ministry of Culture, the exhibition was increased to 125 works. It required the presence and delegation of a professional employee of the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. So Stanisławski, despite the lack of his own fee, got a fee for an employee of the implementation department who, on behalf of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, helped in preparing a large exhibition, Kuliszewicz in Romania. In a report this trip, Regina Markart wrote about the great interest in the Kuliszewicz exhibition, as well as the knowledge of Kuliszewicz's works by the director of Oficiul de Expoziții in Bucharest, Mircea Deac. The exhibition in each of 3 cities were really popular. It was seen by 25,000 people in total. Interestingly, during the exhibition in Bucharest, Tadeusz Kuliszewicz received a government award for spreading Polish culture. Kuliszewicz exhibition ended its tour in the Soviet Union. The Department of Fine Arts decided that Kuliszewicz individual exhibition was included in the master plan of the Ministry of Culture and Art that Muzeum Sztuki was announced as its producer. The ministry even indicated the proposed opening date, which was April 21, the anniversary of the Friendship Agreement. Due to the importance of the artists and the exhibition, the Ministry of Culture and Art asked for a protectorate of ministers of both countries. The exhibition was organized, and I quote, at the personal invitation of Comrade Minister Kucharski, which requires the most representative top-class exhibition hall, end of quote. This time, it was not an employee of implementation department that was delegated, but the head of the modern art department, curator Janina Ładnowska. The Soviet exhibition included works representing almost all Kuliszewicz cycles. In total, over 160 works were presented in the Soviet Union, which makes it the largest presentation of Kuliszewicz works as part of this previously unplanned tour. As Janina Ładnowska wrote in the report, the exhibition was visited in large numbers, and all the catalogs printed for the occasion on the exhibition were sold before it ends. From Leningrad, the exhibition traveled to Moscow, where it was taken over by Soviet Ministry of Culture to show it at Alexander Pushkin Museum. During the exhibition, Hermitage decided to purchase 5 works, and 15 were donated to the collection of Pushkin Museum. The idea that Kuliszewicz art would travel around several countries is not obvious, and at the same time symptomatic for at least 2 reasons. Firstly, it was a fairly safe choice. An artist recognized in the country and abroad whose artistic and thematic range would be able to cover many different circumstances and would work well in every latitude. The artist gained recognition even before war, which significantly in the post-war period, but his art was never politically explicit. On the other hand, the artist is completely unrepresentative for a collection or the profile of Muzeum Sztuki. Currently, the collection includes 25 works from before the war, and the same number is considered lost. A much more representative collection of his work was held at the time at the National Museum in Warsaw or Central Bureau for Art Exhibition in Warsaw. It can therefore be assumed that the idea of the first exhibition was born by Stanisławski himself, who was repeatedly also in cooperation with Mieczysław Poremski involved in the organization of curating his shows, among others, as a part of Polish exhibition during Biennale São Paulo 1962 or during the Decade of Polish Culture in Havana 74. While in this case of the first foreign exhibition in Czechoslovakia, it can be presumed that the choice of the artist could have been on Stanisławski's side, because there is no document clearly indicates that it was Kulisiewicz's exhibition, exactly Kulisiewicz's exhibition that was commissioned to Stanisławski. It seems, however, that Stanisławski, as a curator of all this exhibition, had the final say on shape and concept of this exhibition. It was he who decided that instead of relatively clear political cycles from Mexico, Cuba, or China, he opted for cross-sectional and ontological presentation. Over the next decades, the program policy of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź reflected current political, social, economic condition. The fact that the institution led by Ryszard Stanisławski not only survived the test of times, but also managed to maintain, develop, and update its avant-garde ethos at the times that did not follow for institution autonomy as well as for art itself, should be considered as one of the greatest achievements of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. I finished writing this text only 3 weeks after the sudden and unjustified dismissal of Jarosław Suchan, interim director of Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź. Suchan, just like Stanisławski, led the institution brilliantly during his tenure, which lasted over 15 years, popularizing its avant-garde legacy in the world, but also, after nearly 100 years, including it as a national heritage. He also had to deal with specific political pressures and expectations, but never succumbed to them, or rather, like Stanisławski, proposed solutions that would be in line with him, the team, and the artistic avant-garde DNA of the institution. With this speech, I would like to thank him for his enormous contribution to the development of Muzeum Sztuki, which I'm honored to represent today and to which I intend to devote next years of my research journey. Thank you.